Yeah, it was interesting journey, going from doing commercials and TV shows as a teenager and a child teenager, and then kind of discovering acting as an adult and where I wanted my career to go. I actually had a role on King Kong, and that's what really made me choose to go to drama school, because I was at that age. I was about around 19, 20, and I thought to myself, do I go to drama school, do I not? My heroes at the time, some of them had made it without going to drama school, some of them had gone to drama school. And I was on the set of King Kong, and I was very lucky. I had a couple scenes with Jack Black. And in the New York set there outside, we were tucked around the corner. And I said to Jack Black, Jack, he was pretty cheeky of me at the time, but he was a cool guy. He was totally happy to talk to me. And I said, Jack, what do you think about going to drama school? And he said, I think that'd be a really good idea. But he said, my best advice for you, he said, whenever you do an audition, don't get nervous. He said, because when you get nervous, you start locking up and you start doing the audition robot, you know, and he's doing his Jack Black thing, and then Peter Jackson goes, action, and he's like, oh, gotta go. And he just runs off. So I took that advice, and I ended up going to Toi Whakaari. I was quite fortunate because I did a TV show with a couple of the teachers that taught at Toi Whakaari in Wellington. So they knew me already, and they were very happy for me to audition there, and I got in. So got into Toi Whakaari, and I learnt a lot at that institution, and then I auditioned for Shortland Street. It was quite a funny story, because when you're at drama school, it's very, very serious. You're not allowed to audition, you know, you have to be focused just on learning the craft. And so one day I had a dentist appointment, and funny enough, after the dentist appointment, I booked a role on Shortland Street. I'd always been very interested in politics and had always paid close attention to it. I think as an actor, as an artist, you really want to connect with people. It's a people industry, and most artists, I can't speak for everyone, but generally artists want to affect positive change in the world through their art, through their communication, right? And I think there's a really big parallel between politics and art. And I think if your heart's in the right place, then you want to do the same thing. You want to affect positive change through the vehicle of politics and policy. I saw New Zealand headed in the wrong direction, and I knew that I had to do something about it. I had to get involved. I had to join the fight. And I thought, you know, this is ultimately more important to me than playing dress up. And I saw Winston's speech, the Real State of the Nation speech in Howick earlier this year. And he was the only political leader in this country calling out the W word, woke. And I thought, this is my guy, this is my party. This man and this party are the only ones with the courage to be able to say what everyone else is thinking. And in acting, and in the acting world, there are a lot of people that are actually on our side, that agree with us. I've had a lot of them message me privately saying, good on you, bro. You go there, you fly that flag, you fight the good fight. But the sad thing is that we can't say it publicly in the industry, otherwise you get cancelled, you get blacklisted, you just won't work. And ultimately, I understand the consequences personally that may come my way. I may not work in New Zealand, but you know what? I would rather save my country and not shoot a cat food commercial. That's fine by me. I grew up in my electorate of Hutt South, but I did a little pit stop to Australia, to Perth, when I was about 4. My parents decided to pack up. They heard great things about Australia. They were originally going to move to Melbourne, and someone said, no, you want to go to Perth? So they just said, okay, and we ended up moving to Perth. So I was 4, we moved to Perth, and I started school there. And then at about the age of 8, we moved back. But my time in Australia really ingrained in me that sense of nationalistic pride. And I see now that You know, Australia are taking a lot of our people, right? They're eating our lunch. And Australia already understands what New Zealand First is trying to get across to the New Zealand people. Australia already understands that a little sprinkling of nationalism and that nationalistic pride goes a really long way to benefiting your country. And that excites me, joining New Zealand First as a candidate, and hopefully all the way through to the Beehive, and being able to implement some of that nationalistic pride and putting New Zealand First mentality that we so badly need in our country. The heart of our movement is equal democracy and citizenship for all. And I've seen this country become so divided of late, not just with race and ethnicity, but also who got vaccinated and who didn't. And I'm just sick and tired of seeing New Zealand divided, and I love where New Zealand First stands on those issues about we're all equal, we're all the same, we all deserve to be treated the same. And I really, really love that. I also love the policy regarding our children and our youth and the education system, and wanting them to preserve their innocence and not let them kind of be corrupted by this kind of woke gender ideology that we see kind of coming into all our schools. And it's not just urban schools too. I've had parents reach out to me from rural areas across New Zealand. I was fortunate enough to put forward the policy remit for this at our annual general meeting in Auckland, and was then kind of tarred with the brush of this policy a little bit because the Herald were there taking photos of me as I was announced and speaking on this. And they did an interview with me, and I've had a lot of correspondence about this. And I have a beautiful niece and nephew. I have some young cousins, godsons, and I don't want this gender ideology and inappropriate sexual teachings kind of making their way to their classroom. And I know that a lot of New Zealanders and families feel the same way. And I'm very, very happy to get behind that and stop that from happening. Winston Peters is a very, very generous man, very funny man, very witty man. He's a man with a lot of mana. He's a man that commands a lot of respect. And I think what Casey Costello said, you know, who would you want to go to war with? And I feel the same way. I think she really hit the nail on the head when she said that, and that's exactly how I would describe Winston, as the man that I want to go to battle with, not just because I believe in his messaging and his leadership, because he's there with you, fighting with you. The thing that attracts me to Winston Peters is that I see a little bit of him in me, and the part of him that I see in me is the part that wants to stand up for what's right, even though you ultimately will face personal consequence. And not a lot of people know this, but Winston Peters was tipped to be the first Māori Prime Minister. He was actually a national cabinet member, and he stood up for what he believed in, and that was going against, at the time, in the early 90s, a lot of state asset sales. And he stood up to that and said, no, this is not who we are. And they didn't like that. So he was ultimately sacked, and that's how New Zealand First got started, because of Winston Peters standing up for what was right and standing up for his principles. And I can relate to that because, you know, standing up to these things, this woke ideology, whether it be in schools or treaty and co-governance, it's not a popular thing for anyone in the acting community or the film, television world to do. And I know that it's going to possibly bring personal consequence to me, like it did Winston Peters politically, but I'm ready to stand up for what's right and stand up for this country, just like Winston Peters. New Zealand First are a fun bunch. They like to get to know everybody. They're a bit of a family, and it's quite similar to, you know, when you join the cast of a show and you all just kind of click, you come together, you help each other out. It's a real ensemble. And because we are a smaller party, we, you know, a lot of the team wear different hats. And they've just been such a welcoming bunch to me and my family. My mother is my campaign manager, so I did a campaign college in Christchurch, and she came down with me, and they were just so lovely to her. Shane Jones especially, and Dorothy, his wife Dot, I ended up shadowing their campaign up in Northland and kind of learning how this is all done. And when I walked into their house, I ended up staying at Shane and Dot's home. And first time I walked in, I'd just come back from LA, and Shane says to me, "Here he is, Mr. Hollywood." And he reaches out, gives me a big handshake and a hongi, and the guitars were playing, and we had a few sing-alongs and a really, really great time together. And that's New Zealand first. A lot of people ask me this question, what are they like? What's it really like? And we're just like you, we're regular Kiwis helping Kiwis. I'm Lee Donoghue, New Zealand First candidate for Hutt South in this upcoming general election.